Well, and then we move to Joseph Butler, probably a really prominent name here that we've discussed about him kind of kicking off this approach. But the Christian apologist who pioneered evidentialist approach was Joseph Butler. He lived between 1692 and 1752. In 1736, Butler published The Analogy of Religion, Natural and Revealed, to the Constitution and Course of Nature. So, 17th century authors love these long titles. And if you've read Puritan literature, you know that sometimes even book titles contain a semicolon in there to continue on the title. Well, it was the most important work contributing to a radical shift in British apologetics away from metaphysical, rationalistic argumentation to more scientific, empirical form of reasoning.
Mm-hmm. And so our authors tell us that it's critical that Butler's argument be seen in its context. Butler used analogy not to prove Christianity true and not to provide a foundation for revealed religion, but to answer the objection that revealed religion is irrational. Right. So notice this is he wasn't attacking whether or not God existed and that sort of thing. All he was suggesting, or at least trying to show, is that Christianity was not irrational. And so Butler thought to show that the deist, right, who admits the creation of the world by God, so he didn't need to argue for that, is being irrational in denying the divine origin of the biblical revelation. Or at the very least, he had to answer objections against revelation, right?
Yeah. Butler's book is divided into two major parts dealing with natural religion and revealed religion, respectively. So natural and revealed. So again, the Romans 1 aspect is shining forth here. Well, part 1 deals with life after death, arguing for the rationality of believing that rewards and punishments will be meted out by God based on our conduct in this life. And then part 2 argues from analogies with nature that revelation, like nature, will contain things that seem problematic but are nevertheless true and should be accepted. Butler argued, for example, that the lack of the universality in the Christian religion, the fact that it is not known to all human beings, is not a valid objection against its truth. So,
right, just like there are scientific truths that aren't known to all human beings, so there are, the Christian revelation, there are truths there that are not known to all human beings, right? So, yeah. And they tell us that only in chapter 7 of part 2 did Butler offer positive evidences and arguments for Christianity. Excuse me. He began by arguing that biblical history should be presumed accurate in the absence of evidence to the contrary. Again, he was writing to thwart deism, so there was this, assumption of God's existence. So he argues that biblical history should be presumed accurate, and he noted that Christianity appears fairly unique in having been founded on the belief in miracles, for instance, in contrast especially to Islam, which does not view Muhammad as a miraculous figure. While admitting that none of these arguments is a proof by itself, Butler averred that taking cumulatively, right, together, they form a strong proof, right? So this is the cumulative kind of approach where you look at all of these lines of evidence and you look at them together, and now you have a strong proof. Another line of evidence for the truth of Christianity is the fact of the fulfillment of biblical prophecy, for instance, right? And so Butler concluded in the Analogy of Religion with a chapter emphasizing that he had been answering objections and not providing absolute proof, right? Again, so notice what he does here is he weakens his claim, right? Christianity is rational. Not that I'm showing that God exists or that sort of thing, that it's absolutely true or whatever, but it's rational. And so with a weaker claim, you can have stronger arguments. And so that's the kind of idea that he's working on here.
Mm-hmm. Which might lead into our maybe negative approach a little bit, but we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah.
Well, we conclude our authors by emphasizing 4 points about Butler's method. First, his approach was empirical, not rationalistic, and the character of his conclusions was that the probability not certainty. So he was going for the more likelihood of the case is that Christianity was true. Second, Butler employed this empirical, inductive, and probabilistic approach in a defensive mode of apologetic reasoning. He was there to strike down claims and not provide fully positive claims. His goal was not to prove Christianity true, but to prove that deistic charges that Christianity was irrational were unfounded. Again, the main crux that they were responding to was not atheism, it was deism. And so that might also account a little bit for his maybe weaker claim, just because there's probably a little bit more shared common ground there than with atheism.
Yeah. Third, Butler candidly stated that he was attempting to respond to the deists on their own ground, right? So there's your common ground kind of statement there. He says, I have argued upon the principles of others, not my own, right? And thus one should not conclude then that Butler was claiming that Christianity requires an empirical defense or that its truth cannot be accepted on other grounds. And then fourthly, Butler assumed the existence of God, an assumption he could make because, again, his opponents granted that assumption. They were deists. He was therefore not claiming to mount a defense of Christianity that would withstand the scrutiny of, for instance, the hardline atheists.